time to abandon ship.
Oh no!
Here we go!
Can I persuade you to join us for a drink? It's a tradition.
Here, here.
Jar Jar, homie, my main man, quickly. Before the Separatists attack, get into the escape pod.
Hey! This is escape, then we're the pod.
Welcome back to Star Wars Escape Pod and another episode of Rebels Talk, Part 16. We are here to talk about Star Wars Rebels, the finale for Season 3, Episode 19, 20, and 21, of course, and 22. And with me in the Escape Pod is your esteemed co-host, Blake, which we will meet up in just a second. But as a quick reminder to those of you joining us in Rebels Talk, the description always has the list of episodes that we go through in the series, so make sure you check that out and see which episodes that we're talking about, because it's full spoilers ahead for all of you who haven't seen those. So without further ado, let's get into it and take our next step, the road to Ahsoka. Let's do it.
Another happy landing.
All right, and we are back. Welcome back, Blake.
Hello there, indeed.
Hello there. Yes, and man, we got the final 4 episodes of Season 3. We've just been blazing through all of these. Pretty
Man,
nuts.
I was surprised that it was the ending of Season 3. As soon as we finished, the next episode started playing for Season 4. I was like, oh man, we made it.
Yeah. Yeah, now let's not get too far ahead of ourselves. Not at the end of the road
There's
just
only,
yet.
like 6 episodes in Season 4?
Yeah, it's not very many. I mean, yeah, we'll get there. We'll get there. But yeah, here we are. I mean, we got maybe 4 sets or 5 sets of episodes left. Let me think here. 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 more sets, and then we're done. And then we have
Man, that's
Ahsoka,
crazy.
the premiere. And from what I understand, you know, you and the rest of the crew of the Escape Pod we're all doing a midnight premiere, midnight
Yeah.
midnight watch party. And for those of you who don't know, the following day, on official release day, technically it's the Wednesday, August 23rd, there is a plan to have a live Twitter Spaces, and you know, we'll be recording that as well, kind of while on the show. And we got a few other sort of Twitter mates popping on. Other Star Wars podcasts are going to be there, and you know, it's just going to be a party, unless it's completely not. Maybe it's going to be incredibly boring and dry.
Ghost Town.
A ghost town, yeah. But we'll see how it goes. I mean, we've never done any one of these before, so
Ghost Town.
Yeah.
There we go.
yeah. But we'll see how it goes. So make sure you follow us on the Twitter feed using the handle at SW Escape Podcast. It's in the description below. And you know, be sure to set yourself the reminder. Find the tweet. I think it's in our highlights on our profile, and you know, you can use the set reminder button for that Spaces, and it'll be at around 7:30 p.m. August 23rd, and we're going to be chatting some Ahsoka. And you know, it's a good opportunity to sort of get your voice on the podcast as well. And you know, it's a sort of like a big group conversation going on. So you know, formalities are sort of out the window. I'll just, you know, we'll just open mic it and just kind of see how it goes, and hopefully everyone's you know, on their best behavior.
Yeah. Sounds like a recipe for disaster. See
Yeah.
what happens. So many people fall to the dark side.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but you know, we'll see it. We'll see how it goes. If it's an extremely bad situation, then you know, maybe we won't publish it. But we'll see how it goes.
Is it like the old talent shows? See the cane come up behind the curtain.
Yeah, that's right. Oh boy. All right. Well, here we are. We're on the last 4 for season 3. So for all of you guys who do not know, mentioned it in the intro. We're walking through down the road to Ahsoka, and this is our next step on that journey. And the final 4 episodes of season 3. So we have season 3, episode 19. Double Agent Droid is up first. This was directed by Stuart Lee, written by Brent Friedman. This premiered on Disney XD March 11th, 2017, and guest stars Nathan Kress and Josh Gad. This is the voice of what's his name? Olaf, right?
Olaf?
Olaf, yeah, from Frozen.
Oh, see, I've never actually bothered to watch that.
Yeah.
I had no idea you're talking about.
Gotcha. Yeah, you can look up a picture of him if you want, but
The last Disney movie I watched, animated, whatever, I think was like Finding Nemo.
Oh wow. Okay. Well, Josh Gad plays the Imperial cybernetic guy. I forget the character's name, but he's the one that actually is one of the first competent. Yeah, he's one of the first competent Imperials that we've actually seen in the series so far. So that was kind of neat, to see someone who's not Thrawn, who's actually getting ahead. I was like, wow.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because he was kind of like the hacker type character. I think we might actually know someone who's like this person from school.
Yeah, that's right. Nice. All right, well, here's a summary. Chopper and AP-5 and Wedge are sent on a mission to an Imperial facility to steal access codes for the factory on Lothal. AP-5 successfully locates and steals the codes. Meanwhile, Chopper assesses the Imperial network and draws the attention of the Controller, an Imperial agent who controls an advanced spy ship. Using his ship's capabilities, the Controller remotely seizes control of Chopper, intending to use him to locate the rebel base. With their mission successful, Chopper, AP-5, and Wedge head back to the rendezvous with the Ghost, and AP-5 begins to suspect something is wrong when Chopper acts uncharacteristically nice. The rest of the crew thinks AP-5 is just squabbling with Chopper again, though Hera believes to have her suspicions as well. The Controller then uses Chopper to lock the crew in the cargo hold, while he attempts to hack the Ghost computer. AP-5 overrides the door's controls, allowing the crew to disable Chopper. Angry that the Imperials have harmed her droid, Hera sends a counter signal back to the Controller, overloading his ship's systems and causing it to explode. Chopper returns to normal and begins bickering with AP-5 again. That was the description, and this is Rebels Recon.
Double Agent Droid gave us a closer look at Chopper and AP-5's dynamic. I sat down with cast and crew to talk about the challenges of working with Chopper, learning a little bit more about the Imperial listeners, and getting to the bottom of AP-5's moment of zen. Check it out. In Double Agent Droid, we get another fun episode with Chopper and AP-5. Is there anything different about your process when you're portraying a droid character?
I think it's a little different, especially because when Chopper is your co-star, he's mainly a sound effect. A lot of times you're just kind of like going with what's there on the page.
In Double Agent Droid, we see an Imperial listenership filled with people wearing Lobot-esque headgear. Can you tell us a little bit more about those people?
This was continuing a thread that we had left way back in season 1 with the character of Sibo. The idea that there are a number of Imperial agents that give up a degree of autonomy in order to be plugged into the Imperial data network the way they are.
It's really a sort of growing element in the galaxy because the rebellion is beginning to grow, so the Empire is kind of coming back with their own psychological operation.
They're intercepting transmissions, they're intercepting data, seeing where there might be uprisings or intel, and then Thrawn has dedicated this one to, hey, there are these droids, and they keep infiltrating. We should really get on that, because the Empire usually ignores them, but Thrawn doesn't ignore anything.
AP-5 seems truly content when he's floating out in space alone, and disappointed when he's scooped up by the Ghost. Why do you think he would prefer that kind of life?
In this particular episode, they're sort of ignoring him, and he's warning him that Chopper's turned, and they're kind of blowing him off, and they're in this terrible trouble because of him, so he's like, you know what, maybe this isn't so bad.
He tolerates the presence of the rebels. I think he gets, because the Empire had no use for him, he was kind of going to be decommissioned, that it's better to be with them, but he just suffers under their lack of organization and working structure. So in some ways, he would like to just float out there and let his battery die.
He either wants one of two things: stuff to organize and to be left alone. So I imagine if he's free floating in the cosmos, he could probably catalog all the stars around him, and that's his happy place.
As he's floating, AP5 sings a great little song. Was this in the script, or was it something that was just created as you were recording?
This was in the script. I remember asking Dave Filoni, I said, are we really going to have this droid singing here in Star Wars? Are we going to do this? And he said, yeah, why not? And the day that we did that, everybody else, I think, was finished with what they were doing on the show. And Taylor and Freddie and everyone was like, no, we're not going anywhere. We want to stay in here, AP5 sing.
I have weird moments where I think things are going to be funny. And when we got to this moment with AP5, I just pictured him alone in space. It's so different for him. I thought it'd be funny if he kind of just spun it and doesn't even realize that in this euphoric moment, he starts to sing. And I just think it's funny. I mean, it's this very bizarre moment, but with these episodes, I think you want to go weird. Half the audience will call them filler. I know that now. I can't be like Dower and Obi Wan serious every week, you know, that's yet to come.
All right, well, there you go. That was kind of an interesting episode. You know, we saw AP5 singing.
It's very musical, actually. We actually opened with the song cover as well. I don't know if you noticed this.
We opened the episode with the song cover?
Sort of, yeah. It wasn't sung, but it was, Chopper and AP5 were arguing and they were repeating lyrics to a song.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I just actually, here in the document, I put a link to the song if you want to play it. Just
oh,
the first,
yeah, sure.
Handful of seconds.
Okay, I'll play it on. Okay, I'll play it, but you won't hear anything, but our audience will. So let's just take a listen here, real quick.
Anything you could do, I could do better. I can do anything better than you.
No, you can't.
Yes, I can.
No, you can't.
Yes, I can.
No, you can't.
Yes, I can. Yes, I can.
Anything you can be, I can be greater. Sooner or later, I'm greater than you.
No, you're not.
Yes, I am.
No, you're not.
Yes, I am.
No, you're not.
Yes, I am. Yes, I am. I can shoot a partridge with a single cartridge.
I can get a sparrow with a bow and arrow.
I can live on bread and cheese.
And only on that?
Yep.
Sucking a rat.
Any note you can sing.
Okay, well, that's interesting. Yeah, so it's like yeah, and the lyrics are sort of playing off of the relationship between AP5 and Chopper, it seems, a little bit. Anything I can do or you can do, I can do better or something was what they're saying. Yeah.
Yeah, it's what they're doing back and forth because AP5 was saying, oh, he could do the job better than Chopper. And so it was like, yes, I could do anything better than you. Chopper's like, no, you can't. And it's like, it's funny. It's one of the few times you can actually decipher what Chopper's saying.
Right. That's cool,
and
actually.
They were just singing the song, essentially.
That's a great call out. Did you just recognize the song right away?
I did. It's because I've known this song since childhood because there's an episode of the Rugrats where they sing this song.
Oh my gosh, that takes me back.
I've known this since like probably kindergarten.
Yeah. Dang. That's awesome. There was some real uniqueness to this episode because, you know, music in Star Wars like that. I mean, we don't really get a whole lot. I mean, we never get that. You know what I mean? It's just
like this. It's usually just in universe music, right? And you get, you know.
And I don't think I've ever heard anyone in any Star Wars story singing. Like nothing comes to mind.
Palace.
Oh yeah, of course.
I think but there's always like bands like.
Yeah, it's always like it's always Star Wars music. It's not like he was singing like a classical musical kind of thing. Yeah, I guess so. That's still like Star Warsy, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
It's like he's singing like a very sort of classical kind of, almost like he's, you know, taking a step on a Broadway or something like that. You know what I mean?
The Ewoks?
No, not the Ewoks. The AP5.
Oh, I see. Just play the clip. Play the clip from Disney Plus here.
Okay, all right. Yeah, I'm just pulling it up. Here we go. Here it is.
Strangely calm, the silence, solitude. Ah, this is beautiful. I'm in a world all my own. I do not feel alone. It's easy to see I fit perfectly in this wonderful, beautiful suit. Oh, no, 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 go away. I was so happy.
I love that noise too when he goes into the ship.
Yeah.
Bang.
Bang. Just slamming into the cargo hold there. So
Yep,
good.
Exactly. It was like he finally found his happy place and they just rip him away.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Do you think that those like butterfly things flying around him were really there? Was he hallucinating?
I think they were actually there. You know, I think there was some legitimacy to, because droids don't hallucinate, right? So I think there was some legitimacy to where he was in space. Maybe there was some sort of little space creatures. I mean, they look like kind of baby versions of what could have been like a real giant space monster or something. But I don't know. It was like a
small offspring, yeah.
Like a happy place, you know. Like I guess the only thing that could have made it slightly different was like he's in like a nebula or something, and there's all these colors everywhere. But
yeah, okay.
the peacefulness of just being surrounded by stars and everything, I think that's what kind of made the moment. So
It could also be terrifying.
yeah, it would. Yeah, definitely. I mean, yeah, he had his world between world moments right there.
Yeah, that's true.
We get more
All came
Wedge.
crashing down.
Yeah, we get more Wedge in this episode. A very underappreciated guy in the rebellion to have received this mission to take part with AP5 and Chopper, and has a terrible time and pretty much vows to ride completely droidless for that moment on. So I was trying to remember, does he have an astromech in his X-Wing at the Battle of Yavin?
Yavin. He has to, right? I don't remember seeing his X-Wing specifically though.
As far as this episode goes, I mean, other than like the really capable Imperial and a story that involved AP5 and Chopper, I thought it was probably one of the best fluff episodes that we could have had. As far as the actual downsides of what I thought was sort of dumb about this episode was the whole hacking thing, the reverse hacking thing that Hera pulls. That was weird. Like I really didn't like the whole counter signal blows up a ship. Like why haven't they done that like a million times already?
It seems like a pretty big flaw.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just blew up the whole Death Star with that.
Yeah, it's like dude, like through one droid's communication, you know, it's just like what?
It would make more sense if it was just like really loud, like deafened them.
Yeah.
Or something along those lines. But I don't know. I don't understand how it blew up an entire, Star Destroyer or whatever.
I mean, short circuiting
Imperial transport.
Yeah, like short circuiting their memory banks maybe at the very most, but like blowing up the ship,
Fry
like
their electronics, maybe.
I guess it was their way in the story to make sure there was no witnesses to, make sure that this wasn't the reason that Thrawn finds them, sort of thing. But it's like, okay, we're like 2 episodes away from, him finding them anyways. So like,
True.
Why couldn't it be that, Something.
At least like get them a step closer.
Yeah. I don't know. I was like, well, you have to, blow up the whole ship, like just for that. Like, I don't know. It just didn't seem like in-universe lore correct. You know what I mean?
Yeah, this episode had a number of weird stuff going on. It felt like a weird offshoot of Star Wars. There's a group, these hackers or whatever, called the Listeners. They just appear and disappear, and I bet they don't show up again in canon anywhere.
Yeah, exactly. And like, I do love the idea that these guys exist, because to me they almost feel like those undercover like subs, like a submarine just chilling, monitoring stuff on
submarine.
Yeah, like a military submarine, just like with all the equipment to kind of spy and do whatever. Like, it's just like it's in the movies, right? And it's like I believe that this could exist, but at the same time, it just sort of felt unrealistic to have that whole entire ship blow up due to a communication thing. I don't know. It's just like I wasn't really buying that. But the rest of it was really fun. You know, I really enjoyed the whole AP5 Chopper dynamic. Having Wedge show up again and get more story with him was cool. You know, that's always a welcome sight. He's not a very colorful character, I must say. Like, he's a very sort of bran muffin style character. You know what I mean? He's like the bran muffin of the rebellion. Like, I don't know why people like the character so much. It's just like he's not
Wedge.
There's nothing cool about him. He's like everyone's.
He's just a good pilot, but he's a very like straight arrow. He has never really like you don't really get into the detail of his character very much in the movies, right? You just know that he's competent,
right?
And he's survived the Battle of Yavin, and he helps Luke, and you know with the snow speeders, the Empire Strikes Back, and I'm sure he was at the Battle of the Second Death Star.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, he's just one of those characters. I'm like, okay, it would be nice to have a bit more than like what we've had. And anytime we do see more of him, it's just like,
They don't really dive any deeper. He's still just like a bran muffin.
Right. Yeah, he's bran muffin, and you know that's where it ends.
What do they call? What are the? If you remember the old Commando books, they always eat these like really bland foods that like something cubes. You know what I'm talking about?
Oh yeah, like
Nutrient cube.
A nutrition cube, I think is what they were called.
Something like that. Well, he's that. That's what he is.
Or a ration cube or something like that. But yeah, he's like a ration cube, nutrition cube. Just like he's healthy for the story, but he's like nothing enjoyable, you know?
Yeah, there's no flavor.
Yeah, there's no flavor. Yeah.
People are gonna get so mad, all the Wedge fans.
Oh man, yeah. Probably people yelling at us right now.
It's not my fault they didn't dive into his backstory. We don't know really anything about him other than what we've seen in Rebels. But he just he comes across as this nutrition cube of a character the whole time. I don't know. He doesn't have any personality.
Yeah, he really doesn't. Yeah, I don't know. I'm sure there's a lot of legend stories out there that I just haven't read. You know, that involves Wedge. But you know, just from what I've seen in the canon, it's like this guy kind of, I don't know. What's the big deal?
Wait a minute. So do you remember a fake Wedge?
Fake Wedge?
Yeah.
Who's that?
So, if I'm remembering this correctly, in A New Hope, when they're making the plans to attack the Death Star, then there's the one guy who speaks up, right? And he says like, "No pilot can hit a target that small."
Oh yeah, I have a vague memory.
Okay, well that guy was supposed to be Wedge, but they recast him before they did all the pilot scenes.
Really?
So that's fake Wedge. Yeah.
I didn't know that was supposed to be Wedge.
That guy seemed like he had more personality than Wedge does.
Yeah, he totally does. Yeah. Oh man. All right. Well,
thinking will never survive.
Overall, I would give this episode.
You're forgetting the most important part. This might boost your points, so we got to talk about it.
Oh, sure, yeah, go for it.
So when Chopper and AP5 are sneaking their way through the starship, Chopper is like kicking a mouse droid.
Oh yeah, that was kind of good, wasn't it?
It's the thing we've all wanted to do.
Yeah. Right.
Really hard to say.
Okay, well, I don't think that changes my score too much, but I mean,
it's got to be at least a quarter point higher.
Okay, all right. Well, I'll give it like 0.25 Pablo points. And for those of you who don't know, who are new, our score system is out of 7. It's 3 Pablo Pudus is the absolute worst, the worst. Moving up from there, you got 2 Pablo Pudus, 1 Pablo Pudu, and then a Bendu. Bendu's in the middle, that's 50%. And then you got 3 Pablo points, being the absolute best of the best of the best. 1 Pablo point, 2 Pablo points, 3 Pablo points. You know, that's our scale. So 0.25. I mean, just north of 50%, north of a Bendu, but not good, not great, not perfect, but not bad.
I guess I'll be I'll be nice. I'll give it 0.5. But yeah, I feel like kind of that Bendu area is definitely where it's at. It was very fillery, which is ironic that in the Rebels Recon, Dave Filoni, he himself said it was people were gonna refer to it as filler.
Yeah. Yeah, he totally saw it coming, you know what I mean? Okay, well, let's move on here. Season 3, episode 20. This is Twin Sons. There's a lot to talk about here. Directed by Dave Filoni, written by Dave Filoni and Henry Gilroy. This episode came out March 18th, 2017, and guest stars Sam Witwer. And here is the summary. After receiving a holocron message, Ezra Bridger tells the Ghost crew that they must go to Tatooine to save Obi Wan Kenobi from Maul. The crew refuses, believing Kenobi died during Order 66 and that the message is a trap set by Maul. Ezra and Chopper nonetheless sneak away and head to Tatooine, but their ship is destroyed by Tusken Raiders soon after they arrive. Guided by the holocron, Ezra and Chopper set off across the desert in search of Kenobi. After hours of aimless wandering, Chopper runs out of power and shuts down. Ezra is then haunted by visions of Maul, telling him that he failed his loved ones. Shortly afterwards, Ezra passes out. Upon awakening, he finds that Kenobi has rescued him and Chopper. Ezra tries to warn Kenobi that Maul is after him and asks him to help the rebellion. However, Kenobi refuses, saying that the rebellion already has what it needs to fight the Empire. He also has no intention of fighting Maul. Though he knows it is now inevitable, as Maul finds the pair, Kenobi sends Ezra and Chopper to safety and faces off with Maul in a lightsaber duel. After a period of tension, Maul strikes first, but is quickly countered and defeated by Kenobi. Before Maul dies, Kenobi stays by his side and reveals to him that he is watching over whom he believes is the chosen one, with Maul's last words being, "He will avenge us." Ezra and Chopper return to the base on Maul's ship. Ezra tells the rebels that Maul is gone and apologizes for sneaking away. The episode ends with Kenobi watching a young Luke Skywalker at the Lars Moisture farm from a distance. And that is the summary. This is Rebels Recon.
It's been over 15 years since Maul and Kenobi met for the first time in The Phantom Menace. What's it like finally ending that story?
Going into this, I know we had a really rigorous conversation around the idea of whether or not it's something we should be doing, and especially knowing the journeys of both those characters, really making sure that that moment was being constructed from a place of what the story demanded, not from a place of something that we all personally wanted to see.
We were the crazy people that brought him back to life, and I didn't want it to happen in any other form. I thought that we had a responsibility to try to find a way to end it. I also always felt that, like, in a way, by bringing him back to life, it kind of robbed Obi Wan Kenobi of this victory in this moment in his life. So I thought it's a way to bring that back.
How many iterations of this episode did you go through before getting to the final stage?
Several. Interesting thing about the early drafts, I included Kanan on Ezra's trip to Tatooine. However, as the story developed, we realized that really this was Ezra's. Ezra kind of brought the rebels in contact with Maul, so it made sense that on some level he would have matured and basically take on the responsibility of dealing with Maul himself.
There were a lot of deleted scenes from that episode. Tons and tons, probably more deleted scenes than have ever been done. You're just constantly taking things out, less is more, and see how much the audience really needs to understand what's going on. Do they have enough? You have to be clear, but I had to cut it for time, so much of it.
When you're working with some of those legacy characters that are so fundamental to the Star Wars universe, it's important not to lose sight of the characters that are within our show. So it became really critical to understand what this episode meant for Ezra. And when we started development on season 3, it became very clear that there would be an opportunity to tell this story, and that in fact, perhaps in some way, Maul finding Obi-Wan could be Ezra's fault. And I remember very clearly when we started talking about that idea, and you always know because the best ideas are terrifying and exciting at the same time. You know, when you have that moment, which doesn't happen often, where you think, oh my God, this is either genius or disaster, is when you know it's actually something you should be pursuing.
This is the first time that we've seen Tatooine in Rebels. Were there any particular locations that you felt you wanted to make into this scene?
There were some initial discussions about whether or not we would go to Mos Eisley or someplace a little bit more settled, but as you start plotting out the story and you realize what the central point is and who the characters are that are going to collide, you realize you didn't need all that business.
We really wanted to show the desolation and how empty empty it is and how no one would want to live here. So it's actually a pretty great place to hide just because it's so vast and stark. We really just wanted to make it feel reminiscent of what you would see in A New Hope.
The opening teaser of the episode, the whole effort of that is to show you that even though Maul knows what planet Obi-Wan's on, it's very hard to find a person on a planet. So I wanted all these long shots to dedicate time to the feeling of hopelessness that he has.
This is the first time that we've seen the Alec Guinness version of Obi-Wan in animation.
Yep.
What are some of the key elements you needed to get that character just right?
We really went back to A New Hope. You know, he's got a little thing with his mouth that he does, and the way sort of his eyes kind of crinkled just a little bit. So we tried to sort of get those kind of qualities in it and really pay attention to sort of the idiosyncrasies that he has when he was acting in New Hope, and tried to sort of get those in along with him being just a little bit younger, not much.
If you've watched the behind the scenes for Revenge of the Sith, Ewan McGregor's face, when overlaid on top of Alec Guinness's, lines up incredibly well. Their features are actually sort of mapped in a very similar way. They actually have enough similarity in their faces that it's not a difficult thing to translate. So it was one of those things where, because the foundations were all there and because in real life those two actors are remarkably similar facially, it was a pretty sort of seamless thing to go from one to the other, and it was more about details of the costume and the hair than anything else.
I worked a long time with James Earl Taylor as Obi-Wan, and he's fantastic as Obi-Wan Kenobi, and I like his Obi-Wan very much. So for me, it was interesting to have him as young Obi-Wan in the hologram at the beginning of this episode, and then still be able to portray the Alec Guinness Obi-Wan using Stephen Stanton. You know, Stephen happened to say to me in a record, he's like, you know, I do really good Alec Guinness. And I'm like, really? Okay, let's hear it. And it was just, everyone was pretty shocked.
We've seen you portray a spot-on Peter Cushing, and now you're taking on an iconic voice of Alec Guinness. What's the process like for nailing that sort of performance?
You do a lot of study of the original actor's performance, because what you really want to do is pay homage to the person that originated the character. They're the ones that came up with that. There's that very sort of fatherly delivery that he has, being the mentor. I think what he does with Luke Skywalker, you can see him treating Ezra the same way in this story. And so you want to study what they did and try to bring as much honesty into their performance as you can, because what you're trying to do is serve the narrative, serve the story. And when you do that right and the two come together, then it works.
How do you think Obi-Wan was spending most of his time in the desert?
Tatooine is a dangerous place, and there's things that a Jedi could do, but at the same time, Kenobi's in a very different place in his life.
Obi-Wan is very likely doing a lot of meditating on the Force and probably deepening himself, and he's learning those techniques that Qui-Gon was exploring.
Being out there is a journey for him in its own right. It's like a rite of passage, and it's like he's got to stand the heat of the desert and the cold of the night, and he has to learn that, and I think that's why he ages so significantly. All the cares that he's had, all the people he's seen die, I think that that's all very difficult for him.
Alec Guinness has a very specific fighting style in A New Hope. What's the process for animating something so iconic?
We actually took a little bit of what Ewan did and what Alec did, which was kind of cool, because like we didn't have what Ewan did obviously first. So to be able to take like that classic pose that Ewan puts him in, where he's like got the saber here, and we never got to see Alec do that, but we were able to actually sort of make that happen, which I thought was really cool.
Weirdly, the lightsaber probably took as long to get right as Obi-Wan himself. The lightsaber was actually from scratch, so we did start with the Clone Wars version of Obi-Wan's lightsaber, but it wasn't as simple as just paint it so it looks old. We had to sort of tweak the proportions and sort of get it closer to the movies.
The actual duel between the two masters is very short, like a samurai film. How did you come to the conclusion that it had to be done this way?
We never entered into this story trying to think about how satisfying that battle should be. It really became about what was the genuine intention of this moment, and knowing where these two men are at this point in their lives. I think it's important for us, even though on the timeline we aren't to A New Hope yet, to think about what we know of Obi-Wan in that movie and to work backwards in some way to make sure that the character's progression charts appropriately.
When you've fought someone many times and are faced off, you kind of know each other's moves. So if you think about it, the build-up to this confrontation and the actual lightsabers hitting each other is actually longer, because they're basically playing it out in their heads. And the amazing thing is the move that Maul tries after the initial exchange, he actually attempts the move that killed Qui-Gon Jinn. He tries to basically bash him with the hilt.
If you talk to a lot of people that sword fight, they'll tell you people that are very good don't have long fights. It's very quick. And so that scene, it's an homage to the Seven Samurai. I think on one level people would be excited to see another prolonged lightsaber fight, but I just never really saw the confrontation that way, because to do that is to say the characters don't have growth. Yes, it's exciting as an audience member, but it's not a really believable thing. The storytelling has to evolve.
Between the Clone Wars and Rebels, you spent a lot of time with Maul.
Yes.
What's it like finally coming to that moment that everybody's been anticipating?
Well, I've been anticipating the moment for a long time. So I knew that once we were doing Rebels, I was like, okay, there's no way he can avoid his own death at this point. I'm so grateful to Lucasfilm to even have this opportunity. I mean, every time that you get a hold of one of these characters, it's kind of like a rental, because it's Star Wars. These characters are bigger than the actors that are playing them. I think it's important that, you know, we're all stewards, and we're sort of temporary stewards, and we want to do something really cool and then leave it off somewhere where if in the future someone wants to tell another story, they have that to draw from. I don't think it's the end of the character in terms of people learning more about him. I think down the road we'll probably see more. But in terms of this story and probably my association with the character, this is it. And yeah, it's been a tremendous privilege.
Wow, what a great Rebels talk. That was, or Rebels Recon. That was awesome.
So much going on there.
Yeah, we heard from Dave, we heard from Sam Witwer and Henry Gilroy, and man, there's so much going on here to just break down. Yeah, I like how they acknowledge that Maul's been stuck on Tatooine for a while, because it is hard to find somebody on a planet. yeah, that's what we were talking about that last week or the last episode in Rebels Talk, and we're just like, how, you know, if he's already on his way there, like, is he not going to find him right away? But I guess he's still got to look.
They didn't know the right planet is what we're talking about. So they had to find the right planet and get there, and then try to beat Maul.
Yeah, so there was no way, because Maul already knew where he was going, right? But, you know, he realizes after being stuck in the desert for so long, looking for one man on an entire dust ball planet. I'm sure he's searched all the main cities already at this point. And, you know, he realizes, I'm not going to be able to do this without Ezra. Like, I need to lure Ezra here, and the Force will show him to Kenobi, which will guide me, right? So, you know, from the get-go, when the Tusken band, that very violent Tusken band, shows up and takes down Ezra's ship, you know, like, Maul takes those guys down pretty quickly, and makes it look like an accident, you know, as if they ran away. But he's really kind of there to follow Ezra. And, you know, use him as like a trap.
You can't let Ezra die, because he needs to let Ezra lead him to Obi Wan.
Yeah, exactly.
It's funny how Obi Wan just straight up calls him out like immediately.
Yeah, it is. You know, something in the beginning of this episode that stuck out to me right away was that Rex reveals to the group, as they're talking about Ezra's suspicion that Obi-Wan Kenobi is alive. Rex reveals to everyone that, you know, he wishes that Obi-Wan was alive. You know, no one else would wish it more than he, but he reveals that Bail Organa himself confirmed Kenobi's death. And it's unsure as to, like, when this happened and how he told everybody else. But that really stuck out to me, because it means that even, like, those within the rebellion don't know he's alive. So only, like, Mon Mothma and Bail and Leia, like, know of his existence, and that's it, right?
Yeah.
And that's why in Rogue One, when Mon Mothma looks over at Bail, he's like, she kind of whispers to him and says, you're a Jedi friend, you know, like, she kind of, like, almost as if it's like a secret, right? And I've always kind of wondered about that, because, you know, it's like, okay, you know, Leia's broadcast, you know, she's sending him a message and stuff. It's like, okay, the Empire knows he's dead, but, like, how many other people know he's alive still, right? And it's apparent to us now that no one does. It's very few people. To be
extremely small. We now know, because of the Obi-Wan series, that Vader finds out. But I think, do any of the other Inquisitors know, other than Reva, who I think she's dead?
Well, she ends up being redeemed at the end, and then we don't know what happens to her. But yeah, right. I mean, this show having, you know, taking place over 5 years after Obi-Wan Kenobi ends, you know, like, at the end of the Obi-Wan Kenobi series, like, Vader, he was instructed by Palpatine to let his obsession with Kenobi go, right? And then same with Reva, she was redeemed and no longer is hunting Jedi. And at this point in time, from the Rebels series, we've come to realize that most of all the Inquisitors are long gone at this point. Since the end of season 2.
They need to be, because by the time we get to the original trilogy, they're not even mentioned, let alone seeing anything.
Exactly. And that sort of brings up something to pay attention to for the Ahsoka show, because from what we've seen in the Ahsoka series, there's an Inquisitor in the teasers there, right? So it'll be really interesting to kind of
Inquisitor.
Yeah, the last Inquisitor. I mean, I sure hope so. But yeah,
There's always another one. It seems like coming out of the woodwork.
Yeah, totally. Like, I almost, like, what's the bet that he was like, hiding out on Exegol that whole time or whatever, like. So
I think he was in cryo freeze, lost in space.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Oh man, yeah, it's a bit between the lines, but Ezra only realizes that Maul wants to kill Obi Wan in this episode, right? Like prior to that, he only knows that Maul wants the key to, or he wants hope. Right, that's what he tells Ezra initially, is that he wants hope, and I don't really know how that has to do with killing Obi-Wan Kenobi in the end necessarily. Where the, where all the,
I think he wants a reason to live. Like, it feels like there's nothing that he is out to achieve.
Yeah, and I think we were talking about how sort of all the story threads are sort of tied together with, hope / key to destroying the Sith, / like whatever else. Obi-Wan has a lot to do with all that. So when Maul realizes that like Obi-Wan's alive, through the hope that he kind of seeks, right? He kind of goes back to his old self immediately, and he's hell-bent on revenge to kill Obi-Wan, right?
That's all he knows, right? That's how he was raised and trained.
Yeah.
He was an assassin.
Yeah, exactly. So, it's cool that they kind of, give us the idea as to sort of what happens with that story, his intentions, his motives behind, because this is a very vengeful guy. And, that's everything. Like you say, that's all he knows. That's all he knows how to do. What do you think of the fight?
So I remember when this first came out, I was annoyed because I wanted this cool epic battle. And it's very quick.
Mm-hmm.
And Bryce was actually the first one to call out to me that people who are really, really well trained in their combat, their fights are very quick, very fast. And I didn't pick up on the details between Obi-Wan taking his original classic prequel stance, and then there's kind of a bit of a standoff, and then he adjusts and he takes the defensive stance that Qui-Gon takes. And that makes Darth Maul adjust his stance to attack the same way that he attacked Qui-Gon. But Obi-Wan, knowing what was going to happen, was able to change the event. So really, he's avenging his master in this moment. And this is something that we had talked about a number of years ago, and Dave Filoni actually spoke directly about this, and I put a link here about that.
Yeah, while you're talking there, I was able to bring it up here, so we'll all hear this. So let's take a listen.
Contrasted versus the anger in the one man, and that guy's moving his feet a lot, and he's, he doesn't have a steady position. And I'm like, well, there you have it. I mean, Obi-Wan has intention. He is calm in this moment. He is centered. Maul is on the edge. Maul is angry. Maul is getting ready. I want to kill you. I've been waiting for this. He's all this energy built up.
It's much more about footwork and the thought process that Obi-Wan has. It starts out as young Obi-Wan, and then we shift him to sort of more what Alec would do when he was fighting. And then the very last one, if you look back at A Phantom Menace and you can see what Qui-Gon's doing, we sort of just move him just a little bit right after Maul changes his.
Yeah, there you go.
Mm-hmm.
Very cool. A lot of thought went into that. What I really like about kind of like, and it's taken some time to grow on me over the years, because I've thought to myself, like anyone, I love a good long lightsaber duel. How cool would it be to see that happen in the middle of the desert between Maul and Obi-Wan and have this big epic kind of finale for his story. But there is something very unique and very special about how he kind of goes out, right? Like, we're talking about sort of you know, Vader is not necessarily Obi-Wan's arch nemesis, right? Like that,
Right.
that is sort of Luke's story. You know, like there's a big confrontation, there's a big battle between Obi-Wan and Anakin, but it's not like they're lifelong rivals. They're brothers, and it's a tragedy when they do fight, and it's a moment to be remembered for what it is. But Maul is really there. He's there. He's the Phantom Menace. Like he's one of the two, I guess. And he's been there since the beginning. He's the one that's caused Obi-Wan all this pain and suffering. He's the one who killed his master. He's the one who killed Satine. You know, he's the one that's been hunting this dude. He's the one who's been hunting this dude since the beginning, right? So like to have these characters kind of face off the way they do and have this very sort of, I mean,
Resolute.
this like kind of true to life moment where one of them dies in the other's arms, you know, and how Obi-Wan really genuinely just does not want to fight this guy anymore. He's done, you know, like
he seems so tired. He's just like, I'm really only doing this because I have to.
Yeah. And it really, really does play into the original intentions behind Alec Guinness's Obi-Wan when they're approaching the Death Star, and he immediately says like there are alternatives to fighting. And it's like you can see where his mind kind of goes at this point in time in his life, you know, like the battle is gone. Like he's kind of the transformation in the last 19 years since the Jedi Purge, you know, clearly a lot has happened. And since the Obi-Wan Kenobi show, we've kind of come to realize that the events of that show has transformed him as a character, as a person, and the enlightenment that he has at the end of the series when he finally is able to see Qui-Gon as a Force ghost is also a very kind of big step forward in his Jedi training, you know, because even as a master, he is still training, as Yoda puts it, which is kind of the next 20 years of his life as he's almost rediscovering kind of what it is to be a Jedi, even at this point in time. And, you know, I find it interesting that Maul knows of the prophecy of the Chosen One and how the hope that he seeks, you know, might actually have something to do with that, and how he thinks that, you know, maybe through the Chosen One, the balance is restored because he's neither a Sith or a Jedi, right? So he walks in the dark because he's a very vengeful person, but it's the sorrow that keeps him there as a person, that he just can't break away from that well, you know, like that pit of darkness that he lives in. But he still has hope that things can be better for him someday, right? And I don't know, he's just one of those people that just can't be happy, right? And I think we all kind of know people like that, but I really like how
never satisfied, right?
Right.
And the
yeah.
fact that he's against such impossible odds just adds to the fact. Like at this point, I think the reason why he wanted hope is because his goal of overthrowing Palpatine, he knows, is just completely unreachable at this point.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, he's lost everything. You know, he's lost his family, his brother's dead, Sidious killed him, right? Like he's got nothing left. Mother Talzin's dead. Sidious killed her too. You know, like, I mean, in the same way that he's sort of kind of affected Obi-Wan's life, the Sith have sort of affected him. So this fight is really kind of, it's so personal.
You reap what you sow.
Yeah, yeah. So, you know, I really love that moment where he kind of dies and Obi-Wan catches him in his arms and, you know, just kind of lets him be. And he sort of asks his dying question is like, you know, he knows that Obi-Wan's protecting somebody. And so like he asks him is like, is he the chosen one? Because he's a Sith Lord. Like he knows the prophecy of the chosen one. This is a prophecy that Palpatine was probably obsessed with when he heard that there was a young boy that came to the Jedi Order who was the so-called prophesized chosen one, right? Like, you know, the Chancellor knew about this. And, you know, Dooku would have known about this too. And so, you know, Anakin was famous.
Oh.
Everybody knew him, right?
So I was wondering about this because the Chosen One storylines got so muddled in the last handful of movies because Palpatine didn't die. Right?
I think what we have to continuously just remember, though, is that this is in the continuity of George's story, like Star Wars Rebels. So, Dave Filoni with the intentions of the Chosen One being, it's all in reference to Anakin Skywalker. And if we consider the end of episode 6 as a reset point, it just means that a second Chosen One needed to come along and restore balance again because things went sour.
Well, was
right?
Rey ever officially confirmed as a Chosen One? Was that all
No.
just speculation?
No, she wasn't.
Okay.
But Anakin through the Force kind of speaks to her and says, bring balance to the Force as I once did. So I assume that means that maybe she is like a second Chosen One, or if not, maybe maybe there was just
that was
just
a big fan theory that the Chosen One is like a cycle.
Yeah, that was a big fan theory. Yeah. Now I think like we could definitely go deep into this at some point and really kind of get into it because there is a lot to be said about the prophecy of the Chosen One. We'll pick apart all the references across Star Wars and really kind of get into the nitty gritty at some point. And, we'll find time to do that. I think after Ahsoka's wrapped up, we'll put it on the list because it is a really good subject to talk about. And, I love talking about that stuff. Because episode 9 does throw in some questions and a bit of a wrench into things. But
then the Qui-Gon book kind of also like tightens a little bit as well.
Yeah, the Master and Apprentice book, and tightens up a little bit on that, and so there's definitely a lot there to be discussed, but the bottom line is Anakin is the Chosen One, right? And Obi-Wan no longer believes this because he's been so hurt and like so traumatized by basically. I mean, now that we've got Obi-Wan Kenobi as a show, now we understand a little more as to why. Right, like it's I mean, Mustafar. If that wasn't enough, you saw this guy in tears. Basically apologizing to this monstrous-looking human being in this suit. After besting him in battle, he couldn't even bring himself to kill him. Right, and it's like, why would you kill something that's already dead? And it's a sad moment for him, right? And like, he apologized again. And he's like, I'm so sorry. And, I think he really takes what he says as fact when Anakin says to him, you didn't kill Anakin Skywalker. I did. And he's like, yeah, okay. At that point, I think Anakin, Obi-Wan really does believe Anakin is dead. Anakin is gone. There's no return for him, right? Like, that's why when he sends Luke off to fight Vader, the intention is to defeat him, right? But not necessarily bring him back to the light side. That was just something that he was able to do. But, no one, Yoda or Obi-Wan, neither of them saw that coming, right? They didn't even think of it as an option because they all think that he's too far gone. Like there's no hope for him anymore. So Obi-Wan thinks that Luke is the Chosen One because to Obi-Wan, Luke is, to put it, no pun intended, he is a new hope for the Jedi. He is the singular thing that Obi-Wan thinks of that can really fix things. If he does his best to train Luke, in the ways of the Jedi, which has been his intention for a long time. And that matters a lot to him. So when Maul asks him, like, is he the Chosen One? That's why Obi-Wan says he is, because that's what he believes. From a certain point of view, Anakin is dead and his son is the best chance we have. So I liked that they did that.
Sense.
Yeah.
Have they ever said if Luke and Leia also have extremely high midichlorian count, or was that only Anakin?
I mean, it's no secret that Luke and Leia are very gifted in the Force. They've never really gotten into that, though.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's a good question for George, though. I bet you just like, sure.
Yeah, probably. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Classic George. Thanks, George. That's canon now.
In a nutshell, I would consider this easily. This is easily on the top 10 Rebels episodes of all time. No secret there. But I would
unquestionably.
I would be willing to put it in my top 3. Like, this episode is so good that, it's like you can just throw this episode at anyone who's never seen Rebels before, and just give them like a rundown as to who Ezra Bridger is, and they'll still enjoy it. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. So I will say, knowing the history of the characters and even just coming out of Phantom Menace and then seeing this, but if you've seen Phantom Menace, you've seen all the Clone Wars, you could probably even skip Rebels and just go. But if you've seen those two things, it just adds so much more to it because it just gives so much depth to what's happening in this moment.
Oh yeah, totally.
It's really just this culmination of these two characters, usually intertwined storylines.
Right. Yeah, exactly. I would give this. Man, I mean, like, I'm torn. I almost want to give this like a 3 Pablo points.
Oh dang!
It's just it's so good. I think the only thing that could have made it even better is if Ezra just wasn't in the story. But no, I'm just
wasn't there.
I'm just pulling you. Like, I mean, although I mean, there's a grain of truth behind that somewhere. But at the same time, like, it's like, yeah, it is like what we heard in the Rebels Recon episode. This is Ezra's story, right? So it's got to be done sort of from his perspective. But it's so good though. I mean, I'm gonna give this one like a 2.5 Pablo points. It's high up there.
That's what I was like 2, 2.5.
Yeah.
But you know what would have given me? I would have given that extra quarter point.
What's that?
If they had the budget to make a real child Luke Skywalker model. That running scene.
Yeah, that was kind of jank, wasn't it?
They're just so far away. You just see this outline of Luke running towards the homestead. I'm positive that they just use like a season 1 Ezra model and change his hair to blonde.
Nice.
That's my guess. Anyway, that's what I would have done.
Oh man. Yeah, so good. Okay, cool. Well, let's hit up the finale. The final 2 episodes here. It's a bundle. It's a 2-part package, so we'll talk about it as one. This is season 3, episode 21 and 22, 0 Hour, part 1 and part 2. Directed by Justin Ridge, written by Stephen Melching, that's part 1, and written by Henry Gilroy and Matt Michnovitz for part 2. The episode premiered on Disney XD March 18th, 2017. And guest stars Tom Baker, Kevin McKidd, Michael Bell, Genevieve O'Reilly, Clancy Brown, Nathan Kress, Ritesh Rajan, and Sharmala Devar. And this is the summary for the finale of season 3. Various rebel cells begin to gather at Atollon to prepare for the attack on Lothal. However, Thrawn is aware of the rebel plans and tells Governor Price and Grand Moff Tarkin that the real performance is about to begin, as he has already planned a trap for them. Kallus tries to warn the rebels but is captured by Thrawn. Thrawn traces Kallus's transmission and determines that the rebel base's location at Atollon. Thrawn sends his fleet to Atollon and includes 2 interdictor cruisers. With the interdictors in orbit, it is impossible for the rebel ships to escape, and the fleet is forced to fight a losing battle against the Imperials. Knowing that their only chance is to send someone out to summon the rest of the rebel fleet, Commander Sato sacrifices himself by crashing his carrier into Constantine's interdictor, giving Ezra a window to escape. On Atollon, Kanan attempts to ask the Bendu for help, but the Bendu is reluctant due to its neutral role. Kanan then accuses the Bendu of being a coward, which angers Bendu, and it disappears. In hyperspace, Ezra contacts Mon Mothma for help, but she's unable to send reinforcements due to the fear of them getting caught in another of Thrawn's traps. With no options left, Ezra decides to ask Sabine for help. With the battle going poorly, the rebels are forced to retreat back to the base on Atollon and activate the shield generator, protecting them from the Imperial fleet's bombardment. Thrawn responds by sending a ground force to assault the base, and Ezra reaches Sabine and convinces her and Rao to lead a small Mandalorian force to destroy the remaining interdictor cruiser, which will allow the rebels to escape. Thrawn's forces breach the base's defenses, but before he can capture the rebels, the Bendu intervenes, attacking the Imperial forces and distracting them long enough for the rebels to evacuate. But it attacks them as well. At the same time, Ezra and Sabine destroy the interdictor, and Kallus escapes imprisonment and ejects in an escape pod to be picked up by the Ghost crew. The rebel fleet then escapes. Back on the surface, Thrawn incapacitates the Bendu, who warns Thrawn that it has already foreseen his death. Refusing to believe this, Thrawn attempts to kill Bendu personally, but it disappears before the shot could even hit the ground. The remaining rebel fleet leaves to rendezvous with the rest of the rebellion at Yavin 4, and Hera promises to help Sabine and the Mandalorians on an upcoming mission. Ezra is worried about the massive defeat the rebellion has suffered, but Kanan points out that it is in fact a victory since they escaped. He then tells Ezra that he foresees a future where everybody is free, but that they will have to fight to make it happen. This is the last episode to take place in 2 BBY. That's 2 years before the Battle of Yavin, 2 years prior to the events of A New Hope. And with that said, this is Rebels Recon.
Bendu is sort of the star of these episodes, but he leaves fans with more questions than answers. Are there any other additional nuggets of insight that you can share about this mysterious character?
I think the wonderful thing about Bendu is that he doesn't represent a point of view between dark and light. He just exists. The best part about that is he's able to comment on the very nature of existence without feeling like he is in defense of any particular side. These are all human intentions and human goals, and Bendu does not represent that. He represents something that is immaterial and also bigger than all of us. And I think it's important to keep that perspective on the drama that's unfolding.
Ultimately, I've always thought Bendu's goal is to sleep, and he keeps getting woken up and then he has to deal with it. He has a large range of emotions and he's been around a very long time. So things that seem like a problem to all these people, to Bendu, he's like, I don't even want you to explain it to me. I don't care. But you need a character that kind of is a bit beyond the characters that you have, that knows vastly more, but that is not going to solve their problems, that's going to push them in the right way. And Bendu does it for all of them, including Thrawn.
We see Bendu take on his elemental form in 0 Hour. How did your crew go about creating this new manifestation of the Force?
Developing how he turns into a storm, that would be the easy part. The hard part is actually selling him as a storm. Dave showed me a picture he took driving to work one day of the sun breaking through the clouds. And you see these bright, somewhat organic shapes that almost look like eyes. And he's like, that's Bendu.
Because Bendu is very much a sort of throwback to 80s puppeteering in general, the decision was made that whatever that effect would ultimately be would have that sort of retro cloud tank, like Ghostbusters, Poltergeist, Close Encounters, big volumes of ink in a fish tank kind of feel.
That was probably one of the biggest and hardest things I think we've done so far, of combining animation and effects. And it's not something you usually see in a TV show, but it looks awesome in the end.
I fell back onto the method that I've been doing throughout the show from the very beginning, which is painting it and making the painting come to life. Basically just sitting in my office and painting McQuarrie-style clouds and bringing them to life.
The finale is the culmination of all of Thrawn's plans this season. Is there an additional challenge to writing such an intellectual character like Thrawn, especially for a show with a younger audience?
I don't really think about it like, will the kids understand that? Because I always know the kids will understand the intent anyway. If they don't understand exactly what Thrawn is saying, they'll understand his intention because Lars' performance gives it to you.
I never think of Star Wars as a show for kids. I think it is a show for everyone. Thrawn, we really tried to adapt right out of the novels. Timothy Zahn's books really create such a well-rounded, fantastic character. And I think a lot of kids might want to read the books after they have seen these episodes, because Thrawn is a villain that you usually don't get in animation.
I've heard Tim Zahn describe writing Thrawn as basically playing both sides of a chessboard. And we've been trying to do the same thing in the television series, and this is finally sort of the end game of this particular round.
Last year we were introduced to Death Troopers in Rogue One. Since Rogue and Rebels were essentially in production at the same time, what was the process for bringing them into the show?
The movies tend to be a little more elastic than we are. We have to sort of decide pretty early in the process what the episode's going to be. We knew they would be in the movie, and we knew that they would be tall and thin and they would wear a black variant of Stormtrooper armor, but the details hadn't been entirely worked out, so we were working from test shots, and the sort of final details hadn't really been completely nailed down, but it's what we had to go with.
It just made sense when we were all discussing it internally and with Story Group that Thrawn would be a person that actually gets to have those guys. For us, it would serve several purposes. It was to show that he was really making his move and he brought in the top elite troopers to support him in this time. Also, it's a great connection to Rogue One. We knew the film would be out by this time, and we wanted to start integrating the continuity of everything, which means there will be more of that stuff in season season 4.
So the space battle that we see is probably one of the biggest space battles we've seen in the show so far. What's the trick to animating a scene like that?
We do a lot of tricks. We do a lot of cards and things like that to make it so that we don't have to render all the ships and everything. We've kind of found ways to make sure we can get a lot on screen, but not actually tax the machines too terribly for an animated series.
We use as many of the actual practical explosion elements from episode 4, 5, and 6 as possible. So those are all stage elements. So if you have a ship flying across the frame, all you really need to do is take one of those stage elements and just put it on the ship and make it blow up, and then you shine a light in CG on the ship and give it the effect of the illumination of the explosion on the ship, and you buy it.
Bendu predicts Thrawn's fate when he says, "I see your defeat, like many arms surrounding you in a cold embrace." Is there anything more you can say about that?
Thrawn's victories come through his analyzing tactics and deduction. It's completely cerebral. And what Bendu is trying to say here is, I know what's going to happen to you, and the way I know it is through intuition.
I think in the end it's a question of, is that a literal thing? And that's what's important for Thrawn to try and decide, and what's important for the audience to decide. As much as he has a win at the end of this season, he also kind of reveals a weakness, which I don't know if it's apparent or not, but it's definitely there.
All right, there we go. And, with that said, I actually did not realize that all those explosions were practical elements used in the original trilogy. That's really, really cool.
No, I didn't either. I also caught that when they were talking there.
I was wondering, though, because I was like, man, those look really good. Like, turns out that's because they're real.
That makes sense. Yeah, they don't normally do stuff like that in animated shows.
No, yeah, they don't. So it was cool to see them, kind of blend some elements from those original films into the series that's supposed to tie in, with those films. We're kind of approaching the end of the line here. So
that's true.
Yeah,
I kind of want to watch the space battle now and see if I can actually notice.
Yeah,
their reused elements.
Yeah. I also I love how they talked about the Death Troopers showing up in this episode, because that was definitely a good Rogue One tie-in, and how they had to work with the concepts of those characters at the time, because they do these episodes so far in advance. They build all the models and have to animate the episode, and then again it's also the finale to the season, so it's coming out way later than everything else is, so that they really don't have time to change anything. And so it's just well thought of, and I think I didn't notice a crazy big difference between them and the live action versions. I think they had less stuff on their torso, less utility belts and whatever else. But for the most part, I
really looked at the helmet, and the helmet looked pretty much the same. I didn't notice anything different.
Yeah, the helmet looked pretty much the same, I think.
And they had the really short blaster rifles as well, which was accurate.
Yeah. So it's looked good. Like right away, you can kind of tell what they are. So.
Yeah, I noticed some. And my first thought was, is this the first time we've seen them?
I believe so.
It must be if they're talking about it.
I think they are, because if I don't know. Yeah, what? I think they might be. If not, maybe they showed up in like one episode earlier, maybe around when we saw Saw Gerrera or something like that. But I don't know. It could be the first time.
I think it's got to be, or else they wouldn't be bringing it up.
Yeah.
I'm positive that they start to show up more in the following season.
Yeah, they definitely do. And that's what Dave said. I think he said, like, we have to bring them back for season 4. Yeah. So.
That's right.
Yeah. General Dodonna shows up in this episode and unites the fleet with that of the one on Atollon. So that was cool. We got to see General Dodonna in animation.
Yeah, that's kind of a confirmation, because last episode we were talking about if we're actually seeing the same rebels, right, that we then see in A New Hope, because we're talking about in Rogue One, we weren't sure if Red Squadron was there.
Right. Yeah, exactly. I love how Callus uses Ezra's place as a base of operations. Did you catch that? At least I think it was Ezra's place, because there was a stormtrooper helmet there.
Matt, I think I missed that.
So when Callus goes to...
Oh, wait, no, you're right. No, it's his tower, right?
The
tower?
Yeah, Ezra's place.
I noticed that.
Yeah.
I think I noticed that in a previous episode that he's speaking from there.
I don't. Have we seen it before? I don't think we saw it before. I thought this was the first time that we see him actually make the transmission, like on his end.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know. Either way, like I thought it was like a really cool kind of little nod to how maybe the rebellion hooked him up with Ezra's old place, you know, because he would hide out in there, you know, the street thief, right?
Yeah, that was his home when we met him. And it is a radio tower, so it makes sense they would have the tech there, be able to do a broadcast.
Exactly. Yeah. And Thrawn...
It's too bad that he didn't notice that Thrawn was following him from that giant flat plane in the ladder.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you know, Thrawn basically going alone to confront him is pretty sweet. It's pretty badass. And, you know, he doesn't use any weapons or anything like that, you know, in the fight. He just kind of takes him head on with muscle and gets his death troopers to just make the final arrest. But he, like, beats him up pretty good. And it's like, whoa.
Mm-hmm.
Like, Thrawn is it's not just his mind that's, like, pretty deadly. Like, he's a good fighter.
Yeah, he's a honed weapon.
Yeah. It makes me wonder, like, you know, if we see any of this action going on in the Ahsoka show, because, like, that's good. That would be pretty sweet if we did. But again, we'll have to wait and see. Yeah. Last time we were talking about the design on the bottom of Thrawn's ship, and I can now confirm this design is called the Chimera. It's actually the name of his ship, which I was able to present that last time, but I didn't realize that the creature on the bottom of the ship is the Chimera, and hence the name of the ship itself.
Interesting.
But a Chimera is a 3-headed monstrous creature, and it's used as the symbol of various individual organizations during the waning years of the Galactic Republic and the Empire. But originally, it's a symbol of the Marroxa subclan, and
a chess thing.
It was something in the Thrawn Ascendancy series, and the clan is you know what? Don't ask me what the clan is. I have no idea.
Where's the Wikipedia guy?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Where's SE, Supreme Emperor?
That's right. Where's the Supreme Emperor?
Yeah. Anyways, so Thrawn's flagship, hence the name, you know, calling it the Chimera. This big, huge, monstrous 3-headed creature is painted on the bottom of his ship. And it's also worth noting that an adapted version, a very, very simplified geometric version of this 3-headed creature, is also the logo that appears on a lot of Thrawn's droids. So in the Mandalorian episode where we see Morgan Elizabeth take on Ahsoka in that like little town, there's a bunch of kind of deadly assassin style droids bearing that logo. And it is the logo of the 7th Fleet. And last time, I think I referred to Thrawn's fleet as the 7th Fleet. And that's the logo of the 7th Fleet. So the 7th Fleet uses that little round logo with the 3 kind of triangular shapes inside of it as sort of like their emblem. And then the flagship, being the Chimera, uses the full detailed image on the bottom of the ship. So that's what all of that is about.
That's pretty cool. I'm just Googling it here. Someone actually has the emblem tattooed on their forearm.
Really?
So there's an idea.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's pretty sweet.
Commitment. They really like Thrawn.
No kidding. That's
I can't blame him.
I mean,
he's badass.
He's in better waters than the guy who got a big Jar Jar face on his back before the Phantom Menace came out.
Maybe for the next raffle, we'll pay for a Thrawn tattoo.
Would you pay someone?
Winner.
Would you pay someone to get a Jar Jar tattoo?
A Jar Jar tattoo.
I mean, we love Jar Jar around here. I'm not, you know, for anyone who doesn't know, yeah, we love Jar Jar.
Do it against their will. If they wanted to get a Jar Jar tattoo,
no, but if
I would
someone
consider it.
Oh man, I would not get myself a Jar Jar tattoo, even though I do love Jar Jar. I would not take money from anyone to get one.
I would get Jar Jar, maybe like a bit of like a semi-choking face with his tongue like all like blown out and all like stringy, and I'll get it just behind my ear.
Nice.
Kind of like in the neck area there.
Or like him
Like
sticking his
neck
tongue
edge.
out and his tongue just like kind of like going right against the edge of
Goes
your
around-
lips.
Yeah. Oh gosh. I was gonna say the tongue comes around like into the like the middle of your ear. Ear canal.
Oh jeez. Commander Sato meets his demising end in this episode, so he sacrifices himself with that big huge hangar bay floating fortress kind of triangular ship. Hence the reason why we don't see it later.
I was really sad to see that go. I like that ship a lot.
Yeah, and also like that character has been kind of a main character in their like Rebel contacts list for a while, like since like season 1, I think.
Season 1, yeah, Sato.
He's been around for a long time, so like it was kind of crazy that they killed off one of their star, Rebels original characters, sort of thing. But I guess they had to because he's like a high-ranking guy that you don't see later, right?
The only problem is he should have did the Holdo move and he could have took out the whole fleet.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah. Why was he so stupid?
Man, if only he calls himself a bridge commander.
Yeah, exactly. Mon reveals that Bail did not think that they were ready for open warfare, and that was kind of interesting as well because, clearly they weren't, and they aren't. But give it 2 years, and they're sort of doing it to save their own skin, but they do it anyways. And it was sort of like one of that little, just a little line that like sticks out as like, oh, interesting. So that trio of people that we see in Andor, Mon Mothma, Luthen, and even though we don't see Bail, we know he's behind the scenes somewhere, doing his thing. He's got some weight to some of the decisions made within the rebellion. And, if Mon reveals that Bail doesn't think they're ready for open warfare, that gives a bit of a shed some light on kind of why they haven't attacked, anything yet. They were planning to attack the TIE Defender base on Lothal, but that ended up not working out. So, it's just something interesting.
Point. Yeah, because this episode also kind of shed some light on why in A New Hope they don't really have much of a fleet.
Right. Yeah,
Right?
it's not very big.
Okay, I'm trying to. Is this so? At this point in Rebels, in the timeline, is it after Rogue One? No, it's got to be before because Rogue One's right before New Hope. Okay.
Mm-hmm. I mean, they also took some losses at Scarif too.
Yeah, so I'm thinking right now. So kind of what's going through my head. So I noticed Dave also said that they're heading off to Yavin. I think. Unless that was the thing you wrote down there. So that means they're in Yavin for at least for over a year because this is 2 BBY, the end of 2 BBY.
Well, General Dodonna's section of the fleet is there, right? But the other section of the Rebel Alliance is on Atollon. So they've got two. They've got two separate kind of.
Oh, so
halves.
Were they on Yavin before they came here? So
Yeah,
they've actually
well,
been on Yavin for a while.
I think at some point, I don't know how long they've been there. Dodonna's group, that is. Maybe they've been there for a while as a cell and just kind of it's grown. But we know now that the base on Atollon, they can't go back there. So now, they're going off to hide on Yavin with Dodonna's crew because, the other base didn't work out. But it is good that they've got more than one location, right? Because otherwise it would be game over.
Wipe them out with one swift stroke.
Yeah, exactly. And that's where that line comes from because like maybe Tarkin knows like this is where they all are, right? This is where everything is. So there you go.
Just based on the fact that in the following films we see like the Mon Calamari and everything, like I still don't think that's true.
Yeah, although I mean there is a couple years between episode 5 and 6. Like 3 years to be exact, and 1 year between episode 4 and 5. So, there is some time in there to tell a story as to, how that worked out. And I believe from my really foggy memory, this was a storyline that was visited in the Star Wars comic book series, which is that ongoing series that they've had going on for a long time now, since like 2015.
Okay.
And
about the recruiting of the Mon Cal.
it was somewhere in there. Yeah. And I think it was in the first set. So the first set is like 12 or 13 volumes long. I forget how many issues that is, but I think there's like an omnibus now. And that was between episodes 4 and 5. And now the current Star Wars ongoing series run is between episode 5 and 6. So I don't know where in there they did the story because I haven't read all of them. In fact, I have to admit, I think I've only read up to like volume 6 out of the first initial 12. There's just so much on my list to do that, I just haven't finished.
There's
that
a lot
first.
of comics.
Yeah. My plan is to start fresh and go from the beginning again and then actually finish it this time. But it's been a couple of years since I, left off at volume 6. But, point being, somewhere in there is a story where it does fill in those gaps. So what I thought was interesting is there was a Mandalorian civil war going on during the events of all of this, right? So when Sabine kind of like stayed behind on her home planet there with Rao and makes amends with her family and everything like that, there's a bit of a power struggle going on while Ezra and the rest of all of these characters that we've been seeing for the last couple episodes now, there's been some time, right? And Sabine kind of reveals like, oh yeah, there's been a big, huge civil war going on, or maybe her mom mentions it or whatever. But like, there's been a power struggle there. Did you find that was kind of interesting?
I did, but I guess kind of knowing what's happening in the following seasons, it kind of makes sense because where we left off with the Mandalorian storyline is they killed Gar Saxon, so it makes sense that whoever was next in command would step up to take over. Like his kind of his legion of troopers that are fighting for the Empire. So it's not like they're just going to dissolve, right?
Right.
So something's going to happen there. So now that they've made the first strike by killing Gar Saxon, it's like now they're in open civil war.
Yeah, and that being said, season 4 actually kicks off with a story arc called Heroes of Mandalore, and we will very quickly get back into that story and kind of find out what's going on there. And I forget how long we linger there before we move on from Mandalore and focus on other stories. But yeah, I think it was like there was a few episodes in season 4 that have to do with Mandalore. But what I'm looking forward to talking about is how that ties into what we know happens with Moff Gideon and the whole purge and Bo-Katan and everything like that. That's
because Moff Gideon wasn't a character yet at this point in the creation of the timeline.
Exactly.
So I'm not sure how he ties in.
Yeah, because when Mandalorian season 1 came out, when that finale came out, and Moff Gideon steps out of his TIE fighter and pulls out the Darksaber, it was like, whoa, hold on a second. Like what? Because like we hadn't had a live action Bo-Katan yet, right?
Mm-hmm.
And like this moment kind of shows up, and it's just like, okay, like how did he get the Darksaber? Because like the last I heard, like the last I saw was Star Wars Rebels season 4, and we know that Bo-Katan had it, and you can connect the dots for all these who haven't seen season 4 of Rebels yet. I guess it's sort of a read between the lines sort of thing, but like she gets it from Sabine, right? And I think the Armorer actually talks about that in Book of Boba Fett. But it's just one of those things. It's like, okay, rewatching the show again, do we have an opportunity to sort of look at what we have ahead of this story and kind of try and connect some dots, make more sense of all of this, maybe theorize as to what happened. So yeah, looking forward to that.
Yeah, I'm pretty curious about this too. It must be something that happens right towards the end, I guess. Well, it depends on how how the finale of season 4 goes, because really all I remember is that Thrawn disappears and like.
I think the finale is like the Lothal thing.
Oh, sorry, I forgot to put this. Spoilers, because they're talking about season 4.
There you go.
You've been post-warned.
Post warn is right. Bendu's warning for Bendu blowing up TIE fighters and Y-Wings during the storm really takes the I am angry and don't care which side I hurt. But he did spare Kanan's life and his crew, so that was all right. But he did.
Was that by coincidence though?
No idea. He did. He looked like he could have killed him, I guess. He just didn't. But then again, it's like
too fast. He couldn't get him.
I guess. Yeah, I don't know. Wait, I know you mentioned before that you aren't a huge fan of the Bendu, but like now that you've seen the finale and sort of how this all wraps up, I as far as I know, we don't see him again. But like, what do you think of the Bendu now that we've had season 3 is behind us?
He's almost more interesting of a character in the fact that he's more of an enigma, I think. Originally it seemed like he was just kind of a force wielder that was in the middle, but now it seems like he is significantly more mystical, I think.
Yeah, definitely. It was
all the way up till this point, like his character to me was more annoying than anything else.
Right.
Like he felt very out of place.
Right. Yeah, that's fair. Yeah. Well, if anyone else has any opinions about Bendu, shoot us an email. Let us know on Twitter.
Give us your rating of him.
Yeah.
Is he Pablo Pudus? Is he Pablo Points?
Yeah.
Is he a Bendu?
Is he a Bendu? Well, I wonder if Bendu is a Bendu.
My opinion of him is probably a Bendu. Maybe one Pudu. But it's right around there.
Fair enough. Ezra and Sabine's Mandalorian assisted attack on the interdictor was very cool. We saw a lot of action there. That was pretty much it. I don't know. There's not a lot to talk about, really. Ezra gets a spacesuit. Yeah, that's whatever. Bendu has a warning for Thrawn for his defeat. That many arms in a cold embrace, and previously in the summary. I wrote that
down too.
Yeah, previously in the summary, I actually said death, but that was all speculation. It's actually defeat, and we can say that now with confidence since people know that he's coming back in Ahsoka. So, put the pieces together there, people. But foreshadowing for sure. And
it's interesting though. Oh, hold on. Season 4 finale, so definitely some spoilers here. It's interesting how it was kind of led to question what that means, and they talked in Rebels Recon. I think it's Dave is mentioning it, how Thrawn is left to question if what Bendu says is kind of like a metaphor, but what we know is he's actually grabbed by multiple limbs of the Purrgil.
Yeah, multiple.
So it's literal.
Yeah, it's a literal thing. So many arms in a cold embrace. The cold. I don't know. I guess they must be cold or something. But but this will tie into the finale. Yeah, this will tie into the finale of season 4 and segue its way into Ahsoka, because we know that he's back, right? So. There's going to be a direct connection there. So it's great for people to see this episode, and just like the main kind of bullet points of the Thrawn story so far. So that was very neat. I do wonder, however, I do wonder if maybe that's how that story does wrap up. Like maybe we're being misled as like, oh, even though this happens in season 4 finale, like we don't know how Ahsoka ends. So maybe Bendu's words do still have something, some sort of
meaning.
Yeah, some sort of secondary meaning that, might play in later. That would be really cool if they did, not at the tip of the hat to that. But if not, I feel like it served its purpose.
Well, we'll definitely have to keep that in our back pocket, see if anything, lands and hits for that.
Yeah, totally. I love how Callus is now with the rebellion. He's a good guy now, and he's become such a good character. Like I remember thinking that by the end of the series, I remember thinking back to how he started, and I've always thought to myself he was probably one of the best characters that was transformed over the series.
Yeah, he had a really good arc. They did a really good job with him because season 1, he's definitely one of those he's like a very bland bad guy. And as we pointed out in a previous podcast, is really that episode where he gets stranded with Zeb, where we really dig into his character, and then he becomes so much more. There's so much more depth to him from then on, and we just kind of learn more and more as he grows.
Yeah, exactly.
Something that I wondered, and I don't think they did this, but it would have been super cool, is if they would have, in the original trilogy, picked a scene, maybe like something similar where General Dodonna is, and just like pick a random person from that scene, and use that character as the character who is Callus. So then you get the backstory of this random background character that happens to be in like the meeting room or whatever. I thought that would be cool. I have no idea. I don't think that's what happened, but to me, that if they didn't do that, it's just a missed opportunity.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think this is also the beginning of that whole phenomenon that people started to have with hot Callus. You remember that?
No.
You don't remember that? There was like a whole thing. There was like it was like a whole thing was like because he shows up in season 4, and they kind of make him look slightly older and give him a bit more of a grizzled look, and there was people calling him hot Callus. It was like a whole
he changed
movement.
His facial hair finally.
Yeah, it was like a whole movement, and he had like the bangs going on, some swoopy hair in front of his face, and kind of made it look a little more rugged, and people were
Does he look like Chad Kruger from Nickelback?
No, he doesn't have the curly
That's what you're
hair.
describing to me.
He doesn't have the curly hair, but we're kind of getting there with the facial hair. You know what I mean?
Okay.
But it was kind of funny because I was like, saw him all beat up, and like Kanan puts his hand on his shoulder and stuff, and I just remember thinking like, oh, this is where it begins. This is the beginning of Hot Callus, the origin story.
Oh yeah, I see him here now.
Type into Google Hot Callus.
I didn't type that in. I typed in Callus season 4 Rebels.
Oh man, it comes up. It's a result. Yeah, type in Hot Callus.
I don't want that in my search history, Josh. Don't taint my search history.
Do it. Okay, I kid you not. First result beneath the images and the videos, we got a Reddit article. Season 4, episode 3. Callus is hot, not even low key. Callus is pretty hot. In fact, he's voiced by David Oyelowo. Makes him even hotter. But season 4 canon takes the cake. That's what this one person says.
Oh, I clicked on the article. It's asking me if I'm over 18. No, I'm just kidding.
Oh man. Anyway, Hot Callus, everybody.
I didn't know that was a thing. That's hilarious.
Yeah, it became a thing. Yeah. I think, you know what? We may even hear the original reference to the Hot Callus term on Rebels Recon, when we get around to it. I think it came from Rebels Recon.
Was Andy?
I think
is
so.
Is she going to refer to him as Hot Callus?
I don't know. I don't want to put words in anyone's mouths, but my vague memory, I thought it was Rebels Recon, but I could be wrong. It could have been somewhere else. But yeah,
my gosh.
I don't know. It might have been Andy.
I hope you're right, because I'm gonna laugh really hard. But I don't think so.
I really hope it's on Rebels Recon now. Oh man.
But if it's not, we'll just have to edit it in there.
Yeah. We'll forge something up.
Extension.
My last note here is the Rebel fleet's taking some serious losses. That big ship. Actually, we already touched up on that. But that was the ship that they secured over Ryloth, the one that Sato takes to his grave. And then we have the end of season 3. So Pablo points some poodles for this episode, or sorry, these 2 episodes, because of the 2-parter. If you were to combine the 2 into one story, what would you give this?
It was a lot of fun. There's a lot going on. There's a few things that annoyed me, like when they first destroyed the interdictor and only Ezra escapes. Why didn't any other ships try to get away? The end of the first one, I didn't realize there was 2 interdictors. So that did kind of explain it in the second one, but they could have tried because Ezra got out.
Yeah.
That annoyed me. Instead, they all just retreated back to the base.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, that's true. What's your score?
So I would say it's funny because this is so similar to the ending of the last season, where like it's really good, but then there's a couple things I'm like, could have done that explained that part better, or avoided this one stupid thing.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go with 2 3/8.
2 3/8. Okay.
Yeah.
That's pretty high.
2 3/8.
Huh,
3/16. 2 3/16. Bump it down a little bit. That's a little bit too high.
Okay, so basically 2 though.
Just over 2.
Okay. I think I would
It
go.
was really good overall.
I think I would go with like 1.75 maybe. Like,
Okay.
or,
You're
yeah,
metric and I'm imperial.
yeah. I mean, like, I would go. Yeah, I would go 2.75. 2 3/4.
2.75.
Yeah, 2.7 or sorry, 1.75.
Oh,
not
okay,
2.75.
that's
Yeah,
fine.
1.75, almost at 2. Not great, but like we're almost there. I thought it was cool. I thought it was good. There were some flaws though that just kind of stuck out as like, oh, yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, it's the same thing with me. There's like, it's these animated shows. I feel like 90% there, but they can't quite get it right. They just make a few mistakes, and I would say the previous episode to this arc is probably the closest they got to being perfect in this series.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Well, I mean, there we have it, everybody. Season 3 of Star Wars Rebels. It's kind of hard to rate this entire season compared to the others, but would you say that you enjoyed it more than the previous 2 seasons?
It's tricky because I think this season had more like episodes that were better, but the overall story of this season I like less than last season.
Yeah, that's fair.
If that makes sense. Like the overall season arc story was better last season. I think it's because I liked the idea of Ezra returning to the dark side. That was interesting to me.
Yeah.
Whereas this one, I couldn't get into the Bendu thing. It just really annoyed me.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah. I would agree with that. Yeah. All right. Well, we got only a couple sets of episodes left before Ahsoka. So really looking forward to breaking those last few arcs down with you. And, once again, Mr. Blake, thank you for co-hosting with me yet again another episode of Rebels Talk.
Thanks.
Catch you in the next one.
Wait, do you hear that? Hold on.
I think I do.
I'm getting a call.
Hello there.
This is Master Obi Wan. Don't forget to leave a review that will make even Master Yoda proud.
Very nice. Very nice. Coming in. He's coming in double. Let me fine tune it a little bit here.
This is Master Obi-Wan Kenobi, and you're listening to Star Wars Escape Pod. Don't forget to leave a review that would make even Master Yoda proud.
Awesome. Please follow those instructions. Everybody listening.
Obi-Wan was listening to us the whole time. He just called right in. That was nice of him.
Yeah.
Too bad I didn't stay for any questions. I'd love to ask about the duel Maul.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Too bad he's not sticking around.
Yeah. Oh well, he left real quick before we could ask him anything.
Don't they always? All right.
Yep.
All right, so we'll catch you in the next one.
Sounds good. We'll see you out there. Keep flying.
All right. Thank you so much to all of you guys tuning in at home, joining us each week for another episode of Rebels Talk. And you can find all the ways to contact us in the description below, as well as find the episodes that we watch each week or each episode of Rebels Talk, seeing as we have multiple episodes dropping a week these days. However, that will slow down as soon as Ahsoka hits, and we'll be diving right into Ahsoka aftershows on a weekly basis. Don't forget about the Twitter Spaces. Set your clocks for 7:30 p.m. on the Wednesday, and we will see you in the next episode of Rebels Talk on Star Wars Escape Pod. May the Force be with you.